Hello and welcome to this week's Granny's Garden. Now, despite the fact that it's pouring rain and I'm taking refuge under the little roof outside the kitchen, it is in actual fact well into spring, and the plants, despite the rain and the misery and the grey skies, are galloping ahead and everything is leafing out. So as much as I do like pruning, I'm going to leave my loppers to one side for this week and get along with quite a few jobs that have been piling up while I've been centred on my pruning. Now I need to get some potatoes sown, and I also want to get some perennials finally into my little woodland border. Now I don't have a vegetable patch as such, or a vegetable garden. I just have a couple of raised beds and also growing bags. But I mean, what self-respecting Irish gardener doesn't have a few spuds in the garden? Now I have been chitting potatoes. Chitting basically means just keeping it somewhere nice and warm so the eyes turn into little sprouts. They've been inside in the warmth of my sitting room for about a week, 10 days. And they are sprouting quite nicely. Now I've got two varieties here that I can get my hand on. One is Red Scarlet and the other one are the elongated ones, Annabelle. My aim is not to harvest a huge amount of potatoes when the actual potato plant dies down and then store them in like a cellar or a root cellar over the course of the year. I don't have that type of room because most of my garden, as I said, is dedicated to shrubs, flowers and trees. So I just like the fun of growing a potato. So I use grow bags. The type of grow bags I use are these ones you've seen many times on the market. They're just nice and soft. You can hose them down and use them year after year. And they have this nice little nifty trapdoor with Velcro. And in the case of a potato, once the actual plant has flowered, from then on you can sort of like lift it up and have a feel around inside and see if they're ready to be harvested as new potatoes. Worth noting is that if you do harvest early as a new potato, they are not really good for storage. They'll keep for a few days all right, but the best thing is go straight from here to the table. Absolutely exquisite. The taste is unbelievable. If you want potatoes for storage, then you need to let the plant go to its full maturity. It flowers and then gradually it'll eventually die down, and once it dies down, then you can take the potato and then you leave it for storage like in nets or in baskets or whatever you want to store it in. But this is not my aim. My aim is harvest straight to the plate. So for this reason I use soft growing bags. Really great for potatoes because, as we know, potatoes need to be hilled up to protect them from the light. So what I'm going to do is just fold this down like a little shopping bag. I'm going to fold it down even more actually. There we go. And what I'm going to be doing is putting a 4-inch layer here. That layer is going to be made of potting soil and compost. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'm going to put the actual potatoes in. Now in a bag this size, I'm just going to put 5. So I'm going to start off with the actual Red Scarlet, and I'm going to put 5 of the best ones I can find. Now over this I'm going to put about maybe 3 inches of soil. Spread that out a bit. There's a whole load in the centre and nothing over the sides. Now in potato growing, it is important that the actual potato itself doesn't get exposed to the light. So this is going to germinate, it's going to sprout, and when the plant is about 8 inches tall, then I'm going to put more soil to cover in, leaving only about 3 to 4 inches of the new plant above. 8 inches, cover it up. 8 inches, cover it up. By the time this growing bag gets fully extended, the actual foliage on the top of the potato plant is going to be so thick that it's going to protect the potato from the light, and then I won't have any problems anymore. But this is a great way of growing things, a great way of harvesting things, and great fun. And lightweight. You can pick it up and put it anywhere. So since it's actually raining outside, I'm actually going to just stick it out over there by the veggie patch. Now I need to do the same thing with the Annabelles. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is pot up my Abyssinian Gladiolus. Last year I planted them for the very first time in my garden. And as with everything in my garden for the very first time, it's a bit of an experiment. So I didn't pay very much attention to them at all. I actually left them in a plastic nursery pot. I potted them up into a plastic nursery pot, which is probably too tall and too thin because they are very, very tall. And with the wind I get here in the mountains, they kept blowing over. But even the fact they got blown over about 2 or 3 times a week, they came through fantastically. And when they flowered, I was so impressed. Oh, did they perform. This beautiful, delicate, ethereal, white star-shaped flower with the inner purple star shape, and then in the center you get the beautiful golden stamens. They flowered from midsummer onwards. They are not frost hardy, so come mid-November I took them in, let the foliage die down, cut them down and then stored them using these boxes I always have left over from Farmer Gracie. They actually are great because they have holes in them, great for aeration, and I always have these leftover bags which I keep as well. What I did see very briefly before storing is that the original 10 bulbs had multiplied amazingly, considering they were packed together in this tight nursery pot when I potted them up. So let's have a look. So I'm just going to break off some of the bigger bulbs here. Come back quite easily. Just to have room to grow, poor things. I was a bad plant mama last year, and even at that they responded well. So this year they get the VIP treatment. This is quite amazing. Well, Abyssinian Gladiolus do naturalize well. That's fairly obvious, as you can see. So I'm going to plant them in several areas of the garden, and hopefully, particularly in the perennial border. And what I'm going to do actually is leave some in the perennial border over winter. I'll mulch them up and do an experiment. I certainly have so many, I can certainly afford to leave 10 or 15 in the ground to see how they do. Because, oh my goodness, you can start a shop with this. Pointy side up. Look at the crazy amount I have got to plant out in the garden. So I'm just going to pop those back in a bag with Advermiculae, because I'm going to be planting them out probably within the next 2 days. Now, I have picked up several bare root plants from Farmer Gracie. These are all from my woodland border. I did get a kickstart on this area. Last autumn I planted things like daffodils, crocuses, winter aconite, muscari. I've also got things like bluebells. But I gradually want to increase the ground cover and not just have trees and shrubs. So I picked up a few things, as I said, and those of you who've been following me on YouTube know that when I start off something new in my garden, it's not a new variety or new to me, but it's new to this garden, I tend to buy only very small amounts to find out if it's going to behave well in my garden or not, or if it's going to be attacked by too many slugs or snails or other type of pests. And I don't want to be using chemicals on my garden as much as I can avoid it. So I've picked up our 3 bare roots of Lady's Mantle. This, of course, is absolutely glorious. Lime green flower, beautiful fan-shaped leaves, beautiful when in flower and beautiful when not in flower. The only con is that it self-seeds very readily, something I actually want to happen at this present moment. If in the future I don't want this to happen, then when it's finished flowering, you cut off the flowers and don't let it go to seed. And that is it. Next one I've got is Polymonium, otherwise known as Jacob's Ladder. This particular one is heaven sent. You'll notice a C here. This is a very fragrant one. Lovely ethereal flower. Lovely beautiful leaves as well. This like fern type leaves, and the leaves change colour throughout the growing season. And I've got 3 of these. Brunnera, definitely a shade loving plant. This is a variegata form. The leaves are absolutely gorgeous. I've only got one. because I don't know how the slugs and snails are going to take to it. They're probably going to like it a bit too much. But I'm going to keep my eye on it and see if I can keep them under control or not. If it does get on well, I can survive an initial onslaught until it gets a bit more robust. I'll definitely be getting more of these. The last one I have, again going with the ethereal flowers, is the Anemone September Charm. This is a Japanese Anemone. And this one is absolutely gorgeous. I put a little photo up on the screen so you can see it. Again, I only got one, but definitely be getting more. If this behaves well, definitely be getting more. So that's what I've got for the moment. Now it's time to get planting. Finally get planting. And not just in containers, but in the ground. So let's get going. Here we are down in the woodland border. And as you can see, the Forsythia is there in all its glory. And mirroring the colour underneath are the daffs. Got lots of different varieties now. The crocus are just going over. They're at the end of their flowering season. The daffodils are taking over. It's a very dull day, so the anemones aren't really open yet. They will get better as it goes on. The winter aconite is just beginning to poke its head out. Some of the daffodils are only just starting. Others are in complete flower, depending on the variety. Look at the Sango Kaku, this coral bark maple. Isn't it just absolutely divine? It's still got the red branches of the cold winter months, and yet the beautiful spring growth, spring leaves are just coming out. Isn't that absolutely delightful? And they've got little pink tinges there on the edges. I absolutely love this maple in springtime. Well, who am I kidding? I love this maple at any season of the year. Isn't it just delightful? There beside it, more daffs. These ones are Sabatini. I've got other ones over there which I'll show you just now in a minute. This is the oak leaf hydrangea I planted last year. The old leaves are still hanging on, which I must get rid of, but the new ones are on their way out. And if you come down further down the stem, you'll see there are lots and lots of new growth there. Again, Muscari, they're just in very small drifts now, but anybody who has Muscari knows these are all going to increase. All these daffodils are going to increase, and I'll be able to look the full length of this and have loads and loads of bulb. Daffodil I've got out here, which I planted new last year, are the Ferris wheel. I must say I'm quite impressed with that Ferris wheel. What a beautiful trumpet it's got on the inside. It's absolutely massive. So the idea is then that when the daffodils start dying down, that I'm going to have lots of other type of ground cover to take over, because at the moment, as soon as those bulbs die down, it's going to be pretty bare with the exception of the trees and the bushes. I don't mind bulbs, planting bulbs here, because it is a woodland area, but the trees are deciduous, so when these bulbs are blooming, there's nothing to give them too much shade. Here in Spain, shade-loving plants need to be protected from the west, that hot afternoon sun. So here is where I've got planted Jacob's Ladder, and this is going to be protected from the west, from that afternoon sun, by this magnificent Portuguese laurel. Also, the worst of the sun coming in from the south is going to be protected by this Nandina. It will be receiving, however, the morning sun through this gap, which is absolutely fine. The Brunnera, I've given the most shaded spot. It's cocooned here from the south and from the west and east by this Mahonia shrub, which is now, after the rejuvenation pruning, the leaves go right down to the base. There's only that tiny little alleyway, which in actual fact faces east, so she'll be absolutely fine there. The sprouts are a bit long, so you obviously can't bury them all because it'd be far too deep, but never mind, it'll either change colour or they'll die off and new ones will come out. But absolutely fine, that one. Swinging around from the Brunnera, underneath this Cercis canadiensis little wood, these are little dwarf Cercis, is Lady's Mantle. I've put it in this area here, and hopefully it'll spread all around this area and even further by seed. And then the last little one is the Anemone September Charm. Where is it? Ah, there you are. I'm really hoping it settles in this area, because if I pull back, this is the area I first see when I come in. I've got my little fairy there to the right, my little rose arch there as well. Forsythia is absolutely glorious at the moment, but we all know it dulls down for the rest of the year. So I'd like to have something nice and pretty as I walk into the actual woodland area, because this is just where the path starts before it meanders in and out to the very end. Those blackbirds and starlings are going to have a feast in a few little weeks. Look at the grapes of the Oregon grapes. Oh my goodness. What I'm looking for is this. This has been in for 2 years, and you can see how the anemone, the bride, has knitted into the little tete-a-tete and has become an absolute mass of intertwined flowers. I absolutely love this look, and that's what I'm looking for in the woodland area as well. It takes time. This is now going into its 3rd year, but we'll get there. Quick peek. Meantime, those buds on the rose fountain are getting larger and larger. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will be giving you updates throughout this growing season. It's about time I got around to doing the actual woodland area at floor level, as opposed to, but you have to start somewhere, don't you? You have to start with the main structure. As I always say, it's always got to be trees, then shrubs, then you come down to the lower level. So got the bulbs in last autumn, which will naturalise. I'll be adding more, especially the tete-a-tete ones, which I absolutely love. And of course, things like this Brunnera, anemones. Oh, the possibilities are so exciting. Anyway, enough from me for the moment, and I hope to see you here next week with me in Granny's garden. For the moment, bye bye now.